Ancient Greek myths reveal the secrets of Earth's moon. I'm translating from a Greek article for you. Ancient Greek philosophers knew a lot about the moon. They even have, for example, tales that people were existing on Earth even before we had a moon. They were called the Proselenites. Now, a Greek philosopher named Thales, who is considered the father of Greek and world philosophy, was the first to say that the moon receives light from the sun. He was the first to calculate its diameter and its orbit. Then we have Xenophanes, who mentions that his teacher Socrates described it, quote, a large hollow sphere in which there are seas and lands inhabited by people like us, end quote. Words of Socrates supported by modern astronomers. Pythagoras, we know him from trigonometry. Pythagoras narrates that he made turns around the moon with the vehicles of the gods who lived there, while he states that the lunar day is 15 times bigger than the Earth as it is. Pythagoras also insisted that the moon is inhabited by divine beings similar to humans, but they're taller, blonder, and much more beautiful. All the knowledge of Pythagoras, the mathematics, music, geometry, physics, states that it is knowledge that he received from the celestial beings with whom he had constant contact. In other words, extraterrestrials. Anunnaki, Nephilim, Atlanteans, call them what you want. Kindly support my Patreon account since YouTube has again demonetized my YouTube channel. The daily posts are 5 videos daily, and they are totally different from what I have on my YouTube channel. Thank you so much for your support and that you find all my content so interesting. You'll find the Patreon account details in the description box below. Now, we have many references to the moon from texts of ancient Greek mythology that refer to gods and demigods. We know that, for example, one of the latest videos I uploaded concerning the Olympian gods, they were quote-unquote gods, but they were, of course, the offspring of humans and Atlanteans and extraterrestrials. Anyway, going back to this, the Greek god Orpheus, the son of Apollo, the most regular traveler to the moon, and Sirius, says this: the moon has mountains, states, and houses. Its surface is land like the earth and is inhabited by divine societies. Orpheus knew the lunar calendar of 12 months and the phases of the moon as well. It talks about the Earth's rotation around the sun, the Earth's temperature, temperate, tropical, and polar regions, the lunar eclipses, the solstices, the equinoxes, the planets' motions, and the universal attraction, and claims that the inhabitants of the moon are who wandered from planet to planet. In other words, they were interstellar travelers. And all these claims of Orpheus refer to the ancient texts of Plutarch and Diogenes Laertius. Much information from ancient texts comes to us about the Telchines of Rhodes and the Cavirs of Samothrace, who disappeared according to legend after the Great Flood. Their technological development was such that it allowed them to leave the Earth and be saved on the Moon or Mars, on bases used by the gods during the colonization of Earth. That's very strange because one of the videos next coming up is the ancient Sumerian accounts of the Great Flood, and gods left Earth to go into the heavens in order to save themselves. Gods, quote unquote, like the people that were above Neanderthal or whatever. Anyway, going back to this, that goes along with the Sumerian tablets, go along with what the ancient Greek philosophers and had about this theory of these great gods concerning the Great Flood coming, left the Earth to be saved on the Moon or Mars. In other words, they had space flight, and they went there to stay on bases used by these quote-unquote gods during the colonization of the Earth. Now, reports concerning Phaethon made 30 revolutions around the moon, traveled to Venus, and often visited the poles of the Earth. The poles of the Earth, where it's very, very frozen. Dionysius, Nonos, the ancient Greek philosopher Nonos, talked about Phaethon, who made 30 revolutions around the moon, traveled to Venus, and often visited the poles of the Earth. Now, Venus is the second planet from the Sun, and we are the third, and Mars is the fourth. Venus is just about the same size as our Earth. Strange concerning Venus, because one of the videos that I made yesterday about the Venetian extraterrestrial Valiant Thor, who was supposedly a commander and an extraterrestrial, and someone that was supposedly in the 1950s advising the Pentagon, if we believe that. I don't know. It's hard to believe, but what can we say? That's what's out there. Now, concerning Dionysus, Artemis, and Hercules, they had traveled to the moon, and Idmon was traveling there in his chariot that looked like a sparkling comet, giving very accurate information about the invisible side of the moon. That's the far side of the moon, the dark side of the moon that we can't see. But we have the images from NASA showing us that, for example, all these things, that there are structures on the far side of the moon. Just like Carl Sagan told us, if extraterrestrials exist and they wanted to keep an eye on us, they would do well to be on the dark side of the moon, because we can't see the dark side of the moon, and they could be there hiding from us. So, this is what the ancient Greeks said long, thousands of years before Carl Sagan, that they're on the dark side of the moon, about the invisible side of the moon, something that modern man did a few years ago. That's when NASA took pictures of the far side of the moon. So did Russia. Now, Lukianos, of Greek origin from Samosata, Syria, in 120 AD, read an ancient manuscript and wrote in his book, True History, although he called it a fairy tale, scientifically accurate information which was verified in our time. He said, go on a boat that was taken by the wind for 7 days and 8 days and reached the moon. Boat meaning craft, meaning spacecraft. So they went on to a spacecraft that was taken by the wind, that means going up into the air, and they traveled for 7 or 8 days and they reached the moon. So do modern human spacecraft for the moon. He entered a well that had mirrors above it and could see the whole Earth. Okay, this is a state-of-the-art telescope that used it to see people on Earth. The king of the moon was Endymion, who was taken from the Earth and taken to the moon and made king. Okay, that's according to the ancient Greek mythology. He then describes 3-engine planes, 3-headed flying vultures. These are the 3-engine planes. Modern binoculars, anyone could wear them and they could see far away. And warriors in space costumes. Phaethon's army were people like us, and that's why they wore temperature uniforms, their costumes. It also describes trips to the stars of the zodiac, as well as anchoring, similar to that of modern cosmonauts in the Bermuda area. Finally, he describes a war between the inhabitants of the moon and Sirius, which he states he had visited. He said, air battles took place, and terrible weapons were used, and the Sirius won. So what happened to the moon? If the Sirius won, and there was a war between Sirius and the moon, that means something happened to the moon. Obviously, it had lost. So what happened to the moon? Now, after we have recorded the most important facts and stories from ancient Greece, traveling 2,500 years BC, and thinking how it's possible for all this to be discussed by the ancient Greeks about the moon, a time when there was no science fiction, ! We can ask how it is possible for ancient myths to reach today's reality and still be characterized as myths. Okay? Please leave your comments and thank you for your support. And the next video will be about the ancient Sumerian accounts of the great floods and how these quote-unquote gods left the earth to go into space to save themselves from the destruction that was going to be coming onto the earth with the great flood. So that goes along with the mythology from the ancient Greeks. Amazing. Please leave your comments and thank you for your support.